My guest today is Anthony Maiuolo, a financial service executive with Barnum Financial's SKG team. A bulk of Anthony's business involves assisting people when their group life insurance benefit changes and they have other planning needs. He joins me today to talk about his path from his early financial service career on Wall Street to providing comprehensive financial advice for his clients. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. Tony Maiuolo, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I tell you what, I've been looking forward to this conversation for the last 2 weeks. I'm so excited to have you here and talk about you and your career and how you've built this amazing business. But before I get to you and some questions, just to frame this up for all of you guys, Tony's been at Barnum now for a little, but 8 years, 7.5 to be exact. And he was in the business, and I'll have him tell the story, but he's 10x'd his business from where he was to where he is today. And you're all in for a really great treat today with Tony. So Tony, listen, walk me through how you ended up in the financial service industry. Like, where did this all get started?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Excited to do this interview and have this conversation. I guess where it started originally was just growing up. My parents were both immigrants, kind of from the other side of Italy, and we didn't have much coming up. And to me, my parents were hard workers, very hard workers. Father was a landscaper, mom was a seamstress, and they worked very hard, but a lot of the stuff that they did never kind of came to fruition. They never planned ahead. I, being young and hungry, worked with my dad for many years and knew that's something I didn't want to do for the rest of my life, digging ditches and cutting grass as a kid. So it moved me into the direction of, well, I don't want to be indoors when it's 20 degrees in New York and snowing. And then it turned into, I was always intrigued with the stock market. So at 21 years old, graduated college, took my resume down to Wall Street and kind of interviewed to every firm there. And I always laugh and joke to people, and every firm hired me, right? Because they would have hired anyone who was willing to work back then. So that's kind of where it all started originally.
And when you think about it, do you think your dad purposely made you do that because he wanted you to see that this wasn't the career, the career he wanted for you? Or do you think he just said, I'm going to teach my kid hard work? Like, what do you think the genesis of that was?
I think it was mainly hard work. Funny thing about my father was when I was working down on Wall Street, it was just about hard work. He didn't believe in what I was doing. So he would sit at home and wait home for me. And when you first start out in business, especially being a stockbroker, it's not very lucrative in the beginning. And as a young buck, I'd come home and he'd get upset with me, telling me, you're wasting your time. Don't do this. Come work with me still, or go get a normal job, like a union job for benefits. And he would literally wait at home 9:30 at night when I walked in to tell me that. He meant well. He just didn't know how to deliver his message.
Sure.
I have that trait as well sometimes, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, he was just instilling hard work into me.
That's great. I can relate to that because I went through the same thing when I came into this business. So very different. So how many years did you actually spend on Wall Street? Like almost 10, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was about 10 years. Had a good career down there. I wouldn't say it was a great career. I'd definitely say it was a good career. It was different. And then kind of knew I wanted more, I would say my second half down there. So the last 5 years I was there, kind of knew I wanted to change. How that change happened was, obviously, I had my first child, and that changed my mindset a little bit. Downtown, working on Wall Street is much more of a transactional business where we did private deals, so on and so forth, but we weren't providing kind of holistic value. Ben, one of my partners here, is someone I grew up with for many years. Ben has always kind of told me other side of the industry that he did here at Barnum. And I met Paul actually for the first time. I think it was at Ben's wedding originally. To me, was intrigued by it, but was scared to make that jump. Right. Because when you have something kind of one in the hand, two in the bush type of mentality, I had a job where I was doing well, I was fortunate for what I had, and it was better than anything I ever came from. So to me, I was excited to kind of have what I had, and I was scared to make that jump and move.
Sure. So let's talk about that. So 7, almost 8 years ago, you made the move to you've gained a lot of skill sets down on Wall Street, especially, selling and phone skills. And then you want to come in, you have, Ben being a great producer coming up in his career, very holistic and really thinking very different. And I can go back and say, I remember interviewing Ben, and being that full service advisor was really important to him when he came in right out of college. So you guys graduate at the same time, you go very different paths. Now you're thinking of coming into this path. How was that transition, and how did that go in the beginning?
One thing I would say is Ben would wait outside my office down on Wall Street, because he was at the stock exchange at the time. And he would call me, going for lunch. You're going to go for lunch? And he would sit down there, wait for me. And he would always kind of talk to me. Hey, man, you got to come on board. And that might have lasted about, I would say, for 2.5, 3 years almost. I had a jump where I came up and was considering joining. And I think I met with you, sat down with you the first time. And again, it was kind of scared to jump and make that jump the first time. And then the second time, when Ben was kind of making the move to Westchester, Shelton and Manhattan were very far from each other, but I thought Westchester was a lot closer. At that point, I figured if I don't make the move now in life, I never will. Probably one of the best decisions besides my children and my wife I've ever made in my life.
Well, it's great to hear. So how did that, I really love that. And so I would say that move was probably a turning point of your career in the financial service industry. So talk about what happened when you got here.
100%. Probably one of the biggest things I always go back to is motivational quotes and stories that I listen to. And a story that changed my life twice was the story of Burn the Boats from Hernan Cortez. And that's
share it. I don't know the story. Share it with me.
So that story is Hernan Cortez is a Spanish explorer. There was a empire that had a treasure in which many different empires tried to take over many times, and people failed. There was treasure on their land. Hernan Cortez leaded his army to the treasure land, and when they got there, there was probably about, I think, 600 versus 10,000. They were fighting an army of 10,000, only 600 men. And when they got to the island, he turned back to his men and said, "Burn the boats." So their mentality was, we're going to take over or die. And that's kind of a turning point for me, where I use that story a lot in my life, where there's no plan B. Your plan B is to make the plan A work. So to me, it was, I had someone who believed in me with Ben and yourself, Chris, Paul, you believed in me and gave me an opportunity to come here. And to me, it was, I was going to figure it out one way or the other. There was no, failing at what I was doing.
It's awesome. So as I stay on the theme of, turning points, you make this switch. So now you're going from a transactional advisor and really working on one side of the balance sheet, really on the money side. Then you go now and you're going to try to make this switch to a transition to a financial planner, helping people with all of their balance sheet. How was that mentally for you?
So you question yourself a lot, right? Because there's so much you don't know. When you bought a stock, it was buy it low, sell it high, and that's kind of how it worked. Coming here, I kid you not, I did not have the understanding of all the financial pieces that go into a real financial plan. Wasn't even sure how life insurance worked when I first came here. Wasn't sure the difference between Roth and pre-tax IRA. And we laugh and tell the story when I first came here. Chris and I sitting down in I think it was a diner, and he's basically explaining everything, how it works to me. And my advice to any young person is be a sponge in what you're doing in this industry. Anything that's being said to you or around you, be aware of, because that's going to give you leverage and become a student of the game. And to me, I just wanted to learn more and more, because I knew I had the work ethic behind me, and I just wanted to drive and get to as much knowledge as I could. so that I could move my path along faster than the average bird.
Well, it's interesting. As I was, prepping for you for today, not only did you go to the Dyna when you got here, but you got your CFP designation pretty quickly, probably within 2 years of being in the business, which it takes that time to just get it. Then you went and got your ChFC, and then you got your, I believe, your AIF designation. So not only were you trying to learn the strategies to work with clients, you were sharpening your knowledge on an industry that was really new to you. You had a lot of the skill sets of dealing with people and understanding the stock market, but that was it. So I give you a ton of credit for that. I think back to that time in 2020, we all had a major change in our lives in this industry, right? So you were very different, I believe, than most of the financial advisors on this side of the industry, where all of your business was done on phone, not really face to face, where you get here and you spend 3 years seeing clients face to face, mostly very little on the phone. And then in 2020, COVID hits, and so much bad came of COVID, but a lot of good came from it, in the sense of you are now able to meet clients virtually all over the country. And at the same time that was going on, we were able to get what we call Transition Solutions Program from our partnership with MetLife. And I think that has been a major, those two things happening. You prepare. I always tell people you have to be prepared for when the opportunity comes. So you might not have realized, but you were preparing yourself for 10 years on Wall Street. You went and got all the education and designations, and now you're ready to change your business. So why don't you talk about how that happened and what that meant to you?
Yeah. So COVID was obviously a tough time in many people's lives, and that also was a huge change in this industry, and definitely a huge change for our team, where the simplicity of hopping on a Zoom call seemed like it was the hardest thing in the world 10 years ago for most people. Now it's a click of a button and you're talking to anyone in California, or we have some clients literally up the block from us that we still don't meet in person because they're like, hey, Zoom's just that more efficient. Why do I want to walk down to the elevator for? To me, I was always on the phone, transactional. Transition Solutions, I remember being in your office, Paul, and saying, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Coming up on Wall Street, there was a thing called Dun & Bradstreets, right? 3x5 index cards, I think they were. And you would call them business owners randomly and saying, hey, do you want to buy a stock or a investment, private equity deal? This was individuals that needed assistance with their life insurance, which is the base of any formal financial plan, right? You have to talk about protection before you talk about helping grow, because you have to make sure home is in order. So to me, it was, hey, I could just talk to people about life insurance. And that's what I originally saw the program as when we first had it. And I thought it was an amazing tool, right? As long as I'm willing to work through it, I have the ability to speak to people across the country and help them for a void that they may have. That had then spun into more of a holistic financial plan dealing with clients where maybe they don't need the life insurance, but maybe long-term care is the bigger issue, right? Maybe it's the fact of legacy planning for their family members, or helping them protect the assets that they have today to make sure they live a comfortable retirement. I always tell clients, my number one job when I was on Wall Street, when I first started out, I thought was make as much money as humanly possible for my clients. Coming here, working in the industry now, 8 years, I realized my number one priority is getting them from point A to point B the most efficient and safest way possible. Knowing that we're doing the right thing when it comes to risk versus reward. For the amount of risk you're willing to take, we're getting properly rewarded for it. And also making sure things play out the way you want them to by following our plan, where we can't control the market. And I learned that a few times, coming up as a stockbroker in 2008, believe me when I tell you, wasn't sure if that was a normal day in the market. Some days when Bear Stearns was going out of business, Lehman Brothers. So I've kind of been fortunate for having those bad days in the beginning, because it kind of desensitized you to understanding that no one has control of the ability of the best stock tip in the world. It just doesn't exist.
Fair. So walk us. I want to get a visual of what a day in the life of you is like today, in terms of like how many clients are you seeing? What is your day like now as an advisor?
Mainly, the first thing I do when I get in is I keep my early mornings pretty clear. I'm a man of repetition and a man of consistency. And Paul, you mentioned in one of our meetings, I don't know if it was a kickoff meeting or a mid-year meeting, there's no negotiation. I have no negotiation with myself. I don't care how bad of a day I had the night before or bad of a day I had, the earlier days or anything. I'm dialing the phone. The first time, and people think I'm crazy because I've done a fairly successful run in this business, but I still enjoy the fact of dialing out, reaching out to new prospects and speaking to them. And it's kind of what's driven me my entire career. So, and I think I'll do that at 70 years old, quite frankly.
And it's still better than digging ditches, right?
Still better than digging ditches or plowing snow with my old man, right? Who am I not to work the opportunity that's given to me? I know there's people around the world that would probably chop off a limb to be in the position that I'm in. So I never want to let that opportunity go away from me. I always want to remember that there's someone always willing to take my spot, and I have to kind of stay on top. I'm very Kobe Bryant and very Michael Jordan oriented. I follow a lot of their kind of Last Dance is one of my favorite documentaries I've ever seen. So my typical day is, as crazy as it sounds, first couple hour or two, I'll be dialing the phone. And Ben and Chris sometimes walk in like you're out of your mind, but it's just something I love to do.
Great. And how many calls do you usually make out in, say, those hour and a half, 2 hours? Is it 20 calls you make, or?
On a weekly basis, it's generally around, I would say, 200 dials.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for all of you that are not sitting down or driving, if you're driving, like go back and listen to this part of the episode. Here's a guy that's in the business for 18 years, extremely successful in the top, 0.5% of the industry now with where you are in your business today, 10x your business since you've been here. And you're still making 200 dials a week. And the no negotiating, interestingly enough, I did say it at a meeting, but that is from Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant said, he gave a great story about how most NBA players work out twice a day. And he said, if I want to be the best, I got to do 3 times a day. And when his clock went off at 3:30, you would say, oh my God, maybe I don't want to get up today. And that's where the no negotiating came. So kudos to you. So you do that. And then how many client meetings are you seeing on a normal weekly basis now?
About 40 to 50 client meetings in between the dials. So seeing about 40 clients a week, I would say on average 40 to 50.
And Tony, are those a mix of new clients that you're just meeting with that maybe you got from your dialing, some that are in their second or third meeting, and then client reviews? Is it a combination of everything?
That's exactly right. So every day is a little bit different, and I like to make my day that way on purpose. In other words, we're intentional with that. I can't do the same repetitive meeting each and every day with the client. So I like to see some first appointments with clients where, have an introductory call with them. I like to throw it in with some of the clients that we're putting together proposals for, other clients that we're just doing reviews for, where they've been long-term clients. So we kind of mix it up. One thing we're trying to do more of, and because as I mentioned earlier, Zoom's made us so efficient, but sometimes you forget to kind of interact outside of Zoom. So trying to make more time now to spend time with clients. Some of my clients have been with me now since I've been on Wall Street, 18 years, where they're legitimately sent gifts to my home when my children were born. And, I look at them as friends. So we're really in a blessed position. Part of my day is going outside and kind of talking to my younger advisors on our team, right? We've built a tremendous team here.
Yeah. So let's spend a minute on that. What is the team like now, and where is it today? I mean, 8 years ago, it was a couple of you on the team. What is the team like today?
So the team consists of about 12 advisors today. We have a support staff of about, in total, I would say 25 to 30 support staff. So it's about a 40 person team here. The day to day is, everyone hits the ground running. It's kind of what we preach. Everyone knows kind of what their part is and what their role is. And I know Ben has always kind of laughed about Chipotle, the process that we have. But if you're going to work every single day and you know exactly what your goals are that you have to hit, and you know exactly the metrics and the systems, it's a lot easier and much more confident that you become as a advisor or even a staff member on our team. I shouldn't say staff, team member, because they all add so much value to us, where it makes it a lot more enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you've become like a financial doctor, where after you do a meeting with a client, you're passing on a lot of the other stuff on to one of your teammates that has a function on the team. Am I correct in saying that?
Exactly right. It's exactly right. Paperwork and me don't get along, and technology and me might be arch nemesis. But at the end of the day, I'm in a blessed position where we've built the team out where if I'm not great at something, I know another member on my team is. Right. So that's the difference between us and sets us apart, I think, from the masses, in our opinion. We're very militant in how we run our business. And we believe that people should do what they're great at. Right. Steph Curry probably shouldn't win slam dunk contests if he's hitting threes from half court with ease. Right. So to us, it's whatever your special skill is and whatever you're most talented at, you should basically stay in your lane. Right. Not to say you shouldn't try new things, but master of your craft.
Yeah. And I want to go backwards a little bit too. And I appreciate you sharing that, but I want to show the magnitude when you think of bringing on new clients, which is a big part of financial advisor's role, right? You can have all the designations, all the knowledge. If you don't have a client to work with, you're not very successful, right? It's like digging a ditch without a shovel. So how many new clients per year are you bringing in on average into the ecosystem of the team, but what that you're responsible for?
I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 to 75 clients per year that we're kind of I myself am kind of responsible for bringing on the team. Yeah. Our team is getting larger and larger, like you said, the ecosystem. So to us, it's some clients will have much more handle and care with. Other clients are saying, Anthony, you know what? I appreciate the plan. We set up a plan. I don't need to see you every 3 months. And it all depends on the magnitude of how much that relationship takes out of my day to day. But if a client calls up and it's, hey, Anthony, I need some withdrawal from our account, they don't have to speak to me directly. I have a team that can help them, right? Tax questions. We have a CPA on staff today that we're working through and, able to add value to our clients more holistically. So to me, it's people always say, and I get that question from clients a lot, right? How many clients do you deal with? But generally it's 50 to 75 new clients per year.
And you have an investment specialist that's managing the portfolios that you guys have, correct?
I tell clients all the time, Anthony Maiuolo is not waking up in the morning and saying we should sell Apple and buy Google today. We have our team that we rely with a lot of the resources that we have here at Barnum, and we have a soon-to-be CFA on staff here. We kind of put our heads together and say, hey, what's the best investments for our clients today? Depending on risk tolerance and, what goals are set for each client.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you just said, you said two things that was interesting. You said CPA and CFA, but knowing you and your team pretty well, those people didn't have those designations when they got here. They grew, and then your team has basically a criteria, I believe, in place that you have to go and get those. So why don't you talk about how you and your team look at formal education like a designation? I'd like to understand that.
And that's a big sticking point to me too. Like when I first got here, Ben had a CFP and pushed me every day. You have to start studying for your CFP. And I was just trying to figure it out, right? I was trying to see if I could stay above water when I first got here. So it was a huge life change for me. And I would look at him like, Ben, I love you, but you're crazy. I have to worry about getting business done first. And then I'll never forget, I took my first CFP module and I was hooked. I was like, okay, I can figure this out. Without that base knowledge, I wouldn't want my doctor to say, hey, I haven't been to school in 30 years and we're going to do a surgery today, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. We want to make sure that our people are on top of the industry, right? What changes are happening, right? What is the best way to lay out a personal plan? What is the thought process that goes behind it? Because we're not dealing with, and I tell every single client, I'm not asking them for a pack of gum, right? I'm asking them for their life savings. And they're putting that trust and confidence in our team. And I can't sleep at night if we know we're not doing the best we possibly can for each one of our clients. And that was the part of the reason why I actually left Wall Street originally, right? Because you could buy a stock and it could be the best stock in the world, but you bought it at the wrong time. And to me, it would eat up at me at night. I felt like we tried to do the right thing. And then ultimately, sometimes the stocks didn't work out. Here, we know we're putting the right game plan in place for them. We have the best in the industry behind us. We're supported by one of the best firms. And it gets us to a place where we're very confident in the work that we do because we always know we're doing the right thing. We're just trying to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward with the knowledge that we have.
No, which is amazing. And I really appreciate that and hearing that. And I want to make sure you don't miss this piece, but not only are all your advisors required to get designation, but you also have that for the staff too. Am I correct in saying that?
So every member on our team is encouraged to get some type of designation or license. What we call table stakes is at least the first module on the CFP.
Nice.
Because that is a comprehensive kind of look at what do we do here, right? And it's very difficult and it's discouraging for someone not to know what's happening. We encourage someone who does our calendars to sit in meetings when we're dealing with clients so they can see what impact we have. To know that, hey, when you're scheduling that appointment, this is actually what that leads to long term, right? So we encourage anyone from their first year here to people who just need a refresher to always sit on meetings and understand how we engage with clients and what it is we're actually doing day in and day out. We're not just scheduling an appointment because Anthony needs to talk to someone, right? It's because we need to figure out what is the effect of all the work that we're doing.
That's great. So a couple of other quick ones for you is, we're bringing on, if you do the math, you probably have, 600-700 clients, maybe more on the books now. You're using a CRM system and your team. How are you guys managing that whole thing?
I'll take a famous quote from a leader of our firm. We're not a financial services firm. We're a technology financial services firm, where I didn't understand the magnitude of that. And then Paul, you'd always say that in the meetings. And it's tremendous, right? How could we be so militant and so process driven if we didn't have the backbone of the CRM systems that we use? You always talk about your vision, Paul, of sitting on my back porch one day and, being able to pull everything up and saying, hey, it's a client's birthday and this is the reason I should be calling them. This is kind of what these are the actionable items we have in their plan. It's a blessing. And that's the biggest value, I think, that separates us from most people. It allows us to be process driven and oriented, where that's a big piece of Barnum's sauce, right? Not only as you as leading the firm and seeing the vision that this is the route we'd have to go, but that alone is something that it's kind of bad because we don't appreciate it because we're in the trenches on it all day. And this is what we know. But if you speak to other people in the industry, they're like, wait, what? What do you have? So it's very different. I feel like a spoiled child by saying we have it because I'm just used to it. It's what I grew up in now for the last 8 years.
Well, remember, just for the whole audience listening, the really interesting thing is, that militant way you're running the business, or just, whenever you're managing data or trying to look at opportunities, it's garbage in, garbage out. So there has to be a user on the other end. So I commend you and your team for the way you use the tools and how you're maximizing it. And for everybody here, there's so many different things in this industry, but you got to make sure you maximize the things that are in front of you. So I appreciate you sharing that. I guess, when I think about growth and momentum, I could think of you. When I think of small steps, big wins, I could think of you. What's next for you? and your team on this growth plan that you guys have. You've been clipping away at, 20, 30% growth. What is the plan? Like, what is the future for you guys right now?
I would say my vision is to make our team nationally recognized, which we are starting to become. But I want each one of my quote unquote younger advisors to take my place, right? In other words, grooming them to be the next generation of who we are. And, we have new advisors launching every year now. It's exciting to watch it and see their growth. I'm the type of person, I won't ask you to do something that I won't do myself. And I kind of go out there, and Ben and Chris laugh at me and call me the drill sergeant, but it's just who I am as a nature, right? Like I tell them I'm doing the exact same thing I'm asking of you guys to do. So that's probably the next thing I'm most excited about for our team, just to see how large we can grow this, and along with the firm. And, it's been an incredible ride so far. I just feel we have to keep the momentum, because there's going to be some rainy days, as there always is. And those rainy days, the bad days, are the ones that make you a true champion, right?
Yep. So dealing with some adversity. So that's my last question for you. So, you get here 8 years ago, you have this experience, you evolve your practice, you got the background now, you got the team behind you, you have the education and the designations. You talked about the no negotiation, but how do you keep your mental attitude that you show up every day, and how does that work for you?
It's probably the most difficult part of being an advisor. Our bad days are probably some people's best days, right? So to me, I always keep that in the back of my mind. And there's been some tough days where, the cookie doesn't crumble the way you want it to. You catch some bad breaks. I just feel like, and especially if you're a person who's kind of dialing out originally as a younger advisor, you're one no closer to a yes, right? So to me, it's about don't ride the highs too high, don't ride the lows too low, and staying even keel throughout. That's kind of how I do it personally. I just think, and there's times I get down and have to take a breather, but ultimately I feel like if my main goal keeps driving me day in and day out, we're pushing the team to the next level.
Yeah. And I think knowing you, I think there's this nervous energy that you have that you said earlier, you want them to take your seat, but you wanted to take someone else's seat, but you didn't want anyone to take your role. So you had that energy that you had to show up every day. So, well, listen, Tony, I mean, I'm super proud of you. When I think of, through this whole conversation, a lot of the small steps that you've taken have turned into huge wins for you, where I believe there's another 10x in there for you and your team if you continue to do what you do and you stay healthy and you stay focused on what you do. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for giving back to the people around the industry. And you guys will be more than nationally recognized for the work you're doing. And I know that clients are in a better situation today than they were yesterday after meeting you and your team. So thank you for all you do.
And thank you for having me.
You got it. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.